Everybody, I got David Cooper here with Line Haul News. I've got Mike Lo Presti with me. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Great, Dave. Good to be with you.
Yeah, we have been talking a bunch of stuff safety related here lately on kind of everything we're putting out, and had the safety stand-ups going on. And Mike had reached out to me and said that they were pretty interested in seeing what we were doing with these safety stand-ups. And one thing I wanted to bring light kind of to the community is experience I've had with Mike and with his company. Mike came to us a little bit over a year ago, I guess, at the Atlanta show, and I was introduced to him there, and I was really intrigued on everything fuel economy, and everything that the nitrogen inflation can do with your tires in terms of fuel economy. And while I've seen some benefits in that, I think Mike and I discovered a reverse effect that happened with my company over the last year that I really want to blast everybody's attention. I've had 3 roadside inspections that were completely clean. And Mike, I want to say thank you. I think a big part of that is from your company. For guys that don't know, Mike comes around to our trucks and it's once a month if he can get there. A lot of times my problem is my guys are on the road, but once a month Mike tries to get to where my trucks are at and check out the tires of them. Really, it's what it's there for, right? And at times you're deflating them out and taking the air out and putting more nitrogen in. But the biggest thing that I've used with it is my team has gotten back the detailed reports of, hey, you got a chunk missing here, you got this missing here, or they snap and send us pictures and it's there. And that's really turned over to that. So Mike, can't thank you enough for the service that you did. I want to give you a little bit of time just to kind of brief out and let's talk stories and enterprises, right? We were talking the other day and you were telling me how you're finding chunks missing out of tires, about some really interesting stuff with kind of the future of the business. But let's hear some war stories. That seems to be what everybody always wants to hear is, tell us some stuff about how guys you've seen, what your guys find in the field. I guess some of the best pictures you've sent into you saying, can you
Oh,
believe
yeah.
this?
Well, we've got all kinds. So, David, it's great to be with you. Myself, our whole Fuel and Tire Saver Systems team's very excited about what we're doing. In the background, we came up with this concept and we did some initial experiments. I think I've told you some of these early on. And we went out and we were doing tire inflations and we found a lot of underinflation. And we were just a little bit stunned by that. But we knew that underinflated leads to a lot of blowouts, which is an issue if you're a truck owner. And also in the FedEx network, there's a lot of remote management, so you got an owner in one location, his truck's in a different location. And that's kind of the way of the future, because I think in FedEx, if you got good runs, man, you try to keep them and make them profitable. So our service, where we come out every month, we do a full inspection of all the tires, and then we inflate all the tires using our nitrogen, our Astria nitrogen, and then we use special set pressures that we figure out. We just try to make tires last as long as possible, right? So when interesting, because this just happened recently, so nobody's immune, tires all the time have issues. And we always said, I was always training my guys, our technicians. And I said, you got to park like this, you got to stand here. And I always look at them and say, one day there's tires going to let go. It might blow up while we're trying to fill it up in the parking lot. And sure enough, about 4 weeks ago, that did happen. So our technician standing right place, loud bang, but basically a defective tire. Classic zipper failure, which was like a 2-ply on the forward axle of a line haul tractor, and it ends up the tire had a defect, which is they're really the cause, right? But normally we inflate these tires sometimes 110 psi, and I think it let go at like 95. So we saved a driver, we saved equipment, we saved a huge tow bill, right? You get a flat tire nowadays, there's 118,000 by the FMCSA guys last year, and it's out of service violation, and it's painful. It's
Yeah.
painful for the business and everything else. So,
Absolutely. And Mike, you hit it on the head there earlier. And that's really the biggest benefits you've been for me as an owner from a distance is you having those hands on, right? When we first got into this game 6, 7 years ago, I could get a flight down to Savannah and it was, $120 round trip for me to get down there and back. These days it's a $400 or $500 flight. I've looked for vendors, looked for guys who can get me that hands-on approach, that can get eyes and hands really, but more so eyes on my tractors, on the equipment. I've always felt like I've had a pretty good relationship with my drivers, and I told you this from the beginning. Oh, I got drivers and they're doing this, this, and this. Well, I thought they were doing that, that, and that, but your
Right,
guys kind
right.
of proved that maybe they weren't. I think really what I proved is that I have about probably half of my drivers doing what I want them to do, and half of them that didn't. But your reports were able to give us another tool to go back with guys and say, "Hey, look, you haven't reported this tire at all, any issue with it. Last month it checked out fine. Now it's down 18 psi. You
Yep,
know,
yep.
why wasn't this caught on a pre-trip? It's made us a safer organization. I don't want to lose fact of that with this is that in anything we do as contractors, and I think you've always brought this to light with me with when I've heard you speak and when we've had conversations before, everything we do, every decision we make, it has to lend towards safety.
Sure,
And
sure.
I think that what your service provides and what you've done, at least for my company, I can attest to, right? It has made me a safer organization. It's definitely made me a more efficient organization in everything I've done with reducing my time and my travel and also improving my fuel economy. That's the small potatoes, the
Yeah,
impact that
well, I
you
mean,
have had on
the
a
funny
safety score.
the interesting part here, right, is, all tires is not, quite frankly, if there's going to be a problem and it's tire related, it's typically painful, and in the network there, if you think about best practices, kind of hard to pull off the best practices. And drivers have a lot going on. And if a driver does catch a problem, it's how effective can he do solving it and fixing it? How quick can he fix it? So we don't tend to remove, what their responsibility is. What we're doing is we're just bringing another level of assurance, right, to help to ensure that we've catched some things. And the reality is we catch lots of nails in tires, we catch lots of stones in the tread, but we've got cases where we've caught the nail in a tire before it's a puncture. So that's came out of the tire, and then it's basically you're starting clean. But you run that for a little while with that nail in there, and it's not long before it becomes a puncture, and then you got to deal with a whole new level of headache, right? So it's just a small piece, and the way we see it, we are absolutely about our customers saving more money than our costs. So it's an all in, like no headache, but also the big deal is tires are very expensive. And the reality is that tow truck bill is pretty expensive too if you have some kind of roadside situation. Insurance now is becoming unbelievable. I just saw another report for the third month in a row. Insurance premiums and commercial auto have gone up 10%. And I'm affected. Our little crews with our little vans, we considered kind of roadside service, even though we actually work in a lot. And they're killing me every time it's renewal. And I just it pains me. But what they're looking at is the cost of repairs, the technology in vehicles, and so that drives everything up. So at the end of the day, right, anything we're doing to prevent an incident, make the truck safer, if then we're making tires last 20% longer, which is pretty much it's funny you mentioned 18 psi. So on tractors, it's very often that we come out the first time they're 18 psi low, right? And that's a pretty significant amount. We end up saving extending the life of those tires about 20% in line haul, and then we save a bunch of fuel. So in a case with I think in your case, we looked at it, it was 6 to 7% in fuel saved. And if you get really long runs and pretty new trucks, that's really some serious money. But even if you have older trucks, if you have older trucks and don't get great fuel economy, well, that improvement is that much more powerful, right? So, in the business, you got so many variables you're dealing with. The cost of tires goes up most of the time. I haven't seen it go down in a while. It'd be nice when it did, right? Fuel goes up and down, but you know what? You can't control that. But what you can control is what you use. And in tires, we'd like to use less. In fuel, we like to use less gallons. And we also think there's a small piece when we're coming out and we're inspecting the truck and looking at all the tires, and we can report back to an owner. And every great owner knows that he's using that information to help coach his drivers, right? And when a driver starts, well, a guy like you's got a lot of experience in this business. So when you're talking to him, I think they're all ears, right? But if you're new to the line haul space, or if it's been a while since you've had really constructive conversations with your drivers, all of a sudden now you get to talk about actual data, real information. And, if it's nothing else and you start to see the fuel economy go up, it's a chance to give them an attaboy and say, hey, appreciate it. You may be using crews more, whatever it is. But if it ends up making you more money and profitable, it certainly seems to be the right thing. Because right now there's a lot of changes in FedEx, and it is rather remarkable what we've seen, just is pretty remarkable.
I completely agree. Mike, thank you so much for your time today. For those of you all interested, please reach out to him. We will put your email address and that kind of stuff up here at the bottom of this stuff. So everybody reach out to Mike. Fuel and Tire Saver Systems Company. Again, been a big fan, but a supporter, I guess a client of theirs for the last year. Seen a lot of good with it on my fuel economy. Seen a big impact on my safety score. And to Mike's point, it's all been of how I've utilized his data to make an impact on my drivers. Mike, thanks again for
Great
all your
stuff.
time and all you do for the community.
Thank you, David. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks.